One night, a young man named Alex moved into an old Victorian house on the outskirts of town. He had always dreamed of living in a place with history, but little did he know that this house held more secrets than he could ever imagine. Hello, I'm Sarah, and I'm on a journey to uncover the hidden stories that lurk in the shadows of our everyday lives. And one of those stories takes place in a creaky old house that holds more than just dust and cobwebs. As someone who spent countless hours exploring abandoned buildings and listening to local legends, I think I'm qualified to take you on this spine-tingling adventure. So, grab a cup of tea, turn on all the lights, and let's dive into the mysterious world of the Whispering Shadows. You know, when I first heard about Alex's experience, I couldn't help but think about all those times I've been alone in an unfamiliar place, feeling like something was watching me. It's that prickly sensation on the back of your neck, the feeling that the darkness is somehow alive. Well, for Alex, that feeling became all too real. It started on his very first night in the house. As he was unpacking boxes in the dimly lit living room, he heard something. At first, he thought it was just the wind whistling through the old windows. But then he realized it sounded more like whispers, faint, indistinct murmurs that seemed to come from the corners of the room, from the spaces between the walls. He shook his head, laughed it off, and blamed it on his overactive imagination. After all, moving into a new place can make anyone a bit jumpy, right? But as the days went by, the whispers didn't stop. In fact, they seemed to grow louder, more insistent. Alex would wake up in the middle of the night, his heart racing, sure that he had heard someone calling his name. During the day, he'd catch movement out of the corner of his eye, only to turn and find nothing there. It was as if the shadows themselves were trying to communicate with him. Now I know what you're thinking. Sarah, this sounds like the beginning of every haunted house story ever. And you're not wrong. But stick with me, because this is where things get really interesting. Alex, being the curious and slightly stubborn person he is, decided to investigate. He started digging into the history of the house, and let me tell you, what he found was enough to make even the bravest ghost hunter think twice about spending the night there. It turns out that the house had been built in the late 1800s by a wealthy businessman named Edward Blackwood. Edward was known for his ruthless business practices and his obsession with the occult. Local legend had it that he would hold seances in the house, trying to communicate with the dead. But here's the kicker. One night, during one of these seances, Edward and his entire family disappeared without a trace. The police investigated, of course, but they never found any evidence of foul play. It was as if the Blackwood family had simply vanished into thin air. The house stood empty for years after that, with no one willing to buy it. Until Alex came along, that is. As Alex delved deeper into the house's history, he started to notice strange things happening around him. Books would fall off shelves for no reason. Doors would slam shut on their own. And the whispers. Oh, the whispers grew louder and more distinct. He could almost make out words now, urgent and pleading. But here's the thing about Alex. He's not the type to run away from a challenge. Instead of packing up and leaving like any sane person would, he decided to face his fears head-on. He started talking back to the whispers, asking them what they wanted. He set up cameras and voice recorders, determined to capture evidence of the supernatural activity. And let me tell you, the things he captured on those recordings would make your hair stand on end. Ghostly figures moving across rooms, disembodied voices pleading for help. It was enough to make even the most hardened skeptic question their beliefs. But as terrifying as all of this was, Alex refused to give up. He was determined to uncover the truth behind the Whispering Shadows, and that's when things really started to get weird. One night, as Alex was reviewing his recordings, he noticed something strange. The whispers weren't just random noises. They seemed to be repeating the same phrase over and over again. "Find the truth," they said. "Set us free." Now, I don't know about you, but if I heard ghostly voices telling me to set them free, I'd be out of that house faster than you can say paranormal activity. But not Alex. No, He took it as a challenge. He started tearing up floorboards, knocking on walls, searching for any hidden compartments or secret rooms that might hold the key to the mystery. And you know what? He found something. Behind a loose panel in the attic, he discovered a dusty old journal. It belonged to Edward Blackwood himself, and what Alex read in those pages chilled him to the bone. It turns out that Edward hadn't just been interested in communicating with the dead. He had been obsessed with finding a way to achieve immortality. And in his madness, he had performed a dark ritual, one that trapped the souls of his family members in the house. They weren't ghosts in the traditional sense. They were souls caught between worlds, unable to move on, forced to relive their final moments over and over again. The whispers Alex had been hearing. They were the trapped souls, begging for release. The shadows that moved, the echoes of the Blackwood family forever reliving their tragic fate. Now, here's where things get really intense. Alex realized that he had a choice to make. He could leave the house, try to forget everything he had learned, and let the souls remain trapped. Or he could try to find a way to set them free. I know what you're thinking. Sarah, this is crazy. No one in their right mind would choose to mess with dark magic and trapped souls, and you're absolutely right. But Alex wasn't in his right mind anymore. He had been living with these whispers, these shadows, for months. He felt a connection to them, a responsibility to help them. So, against all common sense and self-preservation instincts, Alex decided to try and reverse the ritual. He spent weeks poring over Edward's journal, deciphering the arcane symbols and cryptic instructions. And finally, on a night when the moon was full and the air was thick with anticipation, he performed the counter-ritual. What happened next? Well, let's just say it was beyond anything Alex could have imagined. The house seemed to come alive around him. The whispers turned into screams. The shadows coalesced into shapes that were almost, but not quite, human. For a moment, Alex thought he had made a terrible mistake. But then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The house fell silent. The shadows retreated. And Alex found himself alone in the attic, surrounded by nothing but dust and moonlight. Did it work? Had he really set the trapped souls free? Alex couldn't be sure. But from that night on, the whispers stopped. The shadows no longer moved. The house felt different, lighter somehow, as if a great weight had been lifted from it. Alex still lives in that house, you know. He says he feels a connection to it now, a responsibility to keep its secrets safe. And sometimes, on quiet nights when the wind is just right, he swears he can hear faint whispers. But they're not pleading or desperate anymore. They're whispers of gratitude, of peace. So, what's the moral of this story? Well, I think it's that sometimes the things that terrify us the most are the things that need our help the most. The unknown isn't always something to be feared. Sometimes it's something to be understood, to be faced with courage and compassion. Alex could have run away from those whispers in the shadows. He could have ignored them, pretended they didn't exist. But by facing his fears, by digging deeper and refusing to give up, he not only solved a century-old mystery, but also brought peace to souls long trapped in torment. It's a reminder that bravery isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway. It's about looking into the darkness and seeing not just shadows, but the possibility of light. So the next time you hear a strange noise in the night or feel like something's watching you from the shadows, remember Alex's story. Remember that sometimes what lurks in the darkness isn't a threat, but a cry for help. And who knows? Maybe by facing your fears, you'll not only conquer them, but also make a difference in ways you never imagined. That's it for this story. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever experienced anything supernatural, or if you've ever had to face a fear that turned out to be something entirely different than what you expected. I'm Sarah, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that these hidden stories don't get lost in the shadows. Until next time, keep your eyes open, your mind curious, and remember, sometimes the most important truths are whispered, not shouted. Goodbye, and sweet dreams. If you can sleep after this story, that is,